Welcome to FootballGamePlan.com, where football makes sense. I'm Emery Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and as you can see, I'm sitting in our storage room where we keep all of our college football mini helmets, and I got to go through these helmets, try to find the top 25 teams heading into the college football season. So sit back, relax, and let's see who debuts on our list at number 25.
But first, let's take a look at some surprise lurkers that's on the outside right now, but will find their way in the top 25 before the season is over with. You want to keep an eye on the San Diego State Aztecs. They're a team that can run the heck out of the football with talented running back Adam Weema, and they returned 9 starters on a defense that racked up 32 sacks last season. Why is Vanderbilt's head coach James Franklin smiling? Because he knows the nucleus of his team that went 9-4 last year is back, and he actually upgraded at the quarterback spot with Austin Carter-Samuels. Cincinnati Bearcats are always dangerous, and this year isn't any different. They're led by quarterback Brandon Kay, who can throw the heck out of the football, and linebacker Greg Blair. Both guys are all-conference candidates. Behind the passing talents of Brent Renner and a well-stocked defensive team, the Tar Heels are serious contenders in the Coastal Division in the ACC. The Tulsa Golden Hurricane is the quietest powerhouse in college football. 4 out of the last 6 years, double-digit win seasons, and this season they once again boast talent on both sides of the ball, with running back Trey Watts leading the way. A September 14th battle versus Oklahoma could catapult them into the top 25. Now here are some of the teams that just missed being in the top 25, 26 through 30. Boise State just missed the cut. I love their defense. I'm just not as sold on their offense as of yet. Baylor has the speed, the talent, the swagger. They have a favorable schedule. Do they have the defense? That's the biggest question. As for UCLA is concerned, losing running back Jonathan Franklin definitely hurts, as well as losing key pieces in the secondary, but Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback Brett Huntley gives these guys a chance on offense, as does linebacker Anthony Barr does for the defense. Miami, in my opinion, is similar to Baylor. A lot of speed with Duke Johnson in the backfield and an improving Stephen Morris at quarterback, but that defense definitely needs to improve before September 7th versus Florida. And speaking of the Gators, defensively, even with the losses, they will still be a very tough football team, as well as in the backfield. The question is the passing game with both the quarterback play as well as the receiving core. Let's start our top 25. Starting at number 25, you look at the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. You're going to see a more explosive Yellow Jacket football team this year, with quarterback Vad Lee's ability to throw the football, making that option attack even more dangerous. Defensive end Jeremiah Attachu leads an impressive front seven that can really put pressure on an offense. The Fresno State Bulldogs check in at number 24. They have a very dangerous football team. 16 returning starters, a solid pro prospect in quarterback David Carr, a sensational sophomore wide receiver in Devontae Adams, and they have a ball-hawking secondary led by free safety Deron Smith. Fresno definitely has the schedule to flirt with an undefeated season. East Carolina has the speed and athleticism on both sides of the ball, and this is a football team that averaged 31 points a game last year. Keep an eye on Mammoth tight end Justin Jones at 6'8", 260 pounds. He could push for All-American honors this season, and a linebacker play in that Pirates 3-4 defense makes it tough to game plan against. If new defensive coordinator Rick Smith can get them to tighten up in the red zone, look out for ECU. I have to take a wait-and-see approach with the LSU Tigers. The talent is obviously there across the roster, but the consistency from week to week isn't. And if quarterback Zach Mettenberger can take the next step and defensively they are able to recover from the losses to the NFL draft, the Tigers could challenge for the SEC West crown. Ole Miss will be a fun team to watch all season long. The Rebels, as a young team last year, definitely overachieved. Now you add a top 5 recruiting class with a young, talented team that believes it can win in the second year of Hugh Freeze's regime, and you can't deny the Rebels a spot in our top 25. No one talks about Utah State, but keep an eye on this ball club. They may be the big dogs on the block this year in the Mountain West Conference, not Boise State. They have the best quarterback you've never heard of in Chucky Keaton, who threw for over 3,300 yards last year and 27 touchdowns while completing 67% of his passes. The Aggies also have the best center in the country in Tyler Lawson. And September 21st, they travel to USC, where they will introduce themselves to the nation. Nebraska Cornhuskers can move the ball at ease against any opponent. Quarterback Taylor Martinez's ability to run puts pressure on the defense and opens things up for the rest of the offense. A very good receiving core coupled with Martinez's improved passing should be an integral part to the overall success of the offense. But the overall success of this football team will be the vast improvement of a defense that fell apart late in the season in the Big Ten championship game versus Wisconsin and the Capital One Bowl versus Georgia. I have Michigan checking in at number 18. All eyes will be on quarterback Devin Gardner, who's a legit dual-threat player at that position. Defensively, the Wolverines will be strong, especially versus the run. And look out for true freshman running back Derek Green's name to be called a lot throughout the course of the season, as he was arguably the #1 recruit in the nation. Head coach Mike Riley has done a hell of a job in Corvallis with the Oregon State Beavers. They're sound on both sides of the line of scrimmage. They can run the ball, and on defense, they can get pressure on the quarterback with NFL prospect defensive end Scott Crichton. The Beavers have the depth to make some serious noise in the Pac-12 this season. The Fighting Irish are still extremely talented on defense. They're armed with arguably two of the top defensive players in the country in defensive lineman Lewis Nix and Stephon Tuitt. It'll be tough to move the football against Notre Dame this year, but the question is at the quarterback position. With the suspension of Everett Golson, can Tyree Reese be effective? We shall see. I actually think Blake Bell will do just fine as the quarterback of the Oklahoma Sooners and giving them a different element back there in the pocket. And I'm also willing to give these guys a mulligan for the defensive production or lack thereof last season. They'll once again be a very tough team, and keep an eye on JUCO transfer defensive tackle Quincy Russell. He's going to be a monster in the middle for that defense. The Arizona State Sun Devils are being underrated right now by many people, but when you take a longer look at what they bring to the table on both sides of the ball, you'll begin to see a squad that could win the Pac-12 outright. September 21st versus Stanford is a huge early barometer of where they are as a football team. The Northwestern Wildcats may be the fastest team in the Big Ten this year. They actually make the two-quarterback system work. They're excellent on defense, and that's a true testament to the phenomenal coaching job done by head coach Pat Fitzgerald. The Wildcats will have to be on point all season long because their schedule is challenging, offering few breaks, and has little room for error. Checking in at number 12, I had the TCU Horned Frogs, and once again, the Horned Frogs are flying under the radar. But with quarterback Casey Paul back in the fold, the offense should once again be explosive. And defensively, last year's Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, Devontae Fields, should once again find himself on numerous postseason all-conference as well as all-American lists, and Week 1 versus LSU should be a classic matchup. Despite the losses on both sides of the ball, the Florida State Seminoles are stockpiled with elite-level talent. All eyes will be on redshirt freshman quarterback Jameis Winston, who was a top quarterback prospect 2 seasons ago, and the Noles secondary is starting to look like it did back in the 90s. They're fast, they're athletic, they're playmaking, and running back James Wilder Jr. is poised for a breakout season. The worst thing opposing teams could wish for is that Oklahoma State's defense finally improves, and it looks like their worst fears have come true, and we know the Cowboys can score from anywhere on the football field. Now they'll be able to slow opponents down as well. Watch out, Big 12. Things might get exciting out there in Stillwater. Stopping the run just wears you out physically, and the Georgia Bulldogs have the best 1-2 punch in the nation with Ty Gurley and Keith Marshall. Quarterback Aaron Murray, despite his critics, has been a highly productive player throughout the course of his Bulldog career. The question about Georgia is, can they recover from the defensive losses, especially on the defensive line? They have a big game Week 1 versus our next team in the top 25. The Taj Boyd to Sammy Watkins combo will be something you'll hear all season long, as both guys could push for the Heisman Trophy. But defensively is where I'm most impressed about this Tigers football team, especially the linebackers. Stephon Anthony is one of the more athletic linebackers in the country, and they're going to have to find a consistent running back threat in the backfield in order to continue to climb the rankings. Staying in the state of South Carolina, I have the Gamecocks checking in at number 7, and even though they're armed with the best defensive end in the country in Jadeveon Clowney, the Gamecocks are much more than a one-person football team. Head coach Steve Spurrier will be able to beat teams in a variety of ways this season, and keep an eye on sophomore running back Mike Davis. He has the skill set to be the next great Gamecock runner. And defensively, with Clowney and defensive tackle Kelsey Quarles, they'll once again make life complicated for opposing quarterbacks each and every week. The Louisville Cardinals have the best quarterback in the country in Teddy Bridgewater, and he's thrown to a savvy group of wide receivers in Devontae Parker and Damian Copeland. 10 starters returned on a defense that was tough all season long, with players like linebacker Preston Brown and 2 safeties in Calvin Pryor and Hakeem Smith. The Cardinals also have the schedule to go undefeated, but keep an eye on December 5th at Cincinnati. The last game of the season could be the most crucial one, and head coach Charlie Strong has done a fine job both in recruiting as well as coaching. The only thing that left with Chip Kelly was his visor. Everything else is still intact out there in Eugene, Oregon. The Ducks are the fastest team in the country, led by the Black Mamba himself, running back DeAnthony Thomas, and Heisman Trophy candidate quarterback Marcus Mariota. The back 7 on defense is where the Ducks cause a lot of problems because they fly around the football, making play after play, and they play back-to-back games versus UCLA and Stanford. Those are 2 huge tests in the middle part of the season. Coming in at number 4, I have the Texas A&M Aggies, and they are serious national title contenders if, and that's a big if, Johnny Manziel can play with that tunnel vision that he did last season. But what's actually lost in all of the offseason hoopla is how well the Aggies improved in the backfield with Brandon Williams and on the flanks with true freshman wide receiver / tight end Ricky Seals-Jones. The biggest question is, can he replace defensive end DeMontre Moore, who had 12.5 sacks and 8.5 TFLs last year, but everywhere else on this team, they're locked and loaded and ready to go. The Ohio State Buckeyes have the front runner for the Heisman Trophy in quarterback Braxton Miller, who rushed for over 1,200 yards last season and improved significantly throwing the football. And they also have one of the premier linebackers in the country in Ryan Shazier, who does an excellent job on both ends of defense. This is the second year in Urban Meyer's system, and he's done a great job recruiting, and it's hard to say that a team that's coming off a 12-0 season will be much better the following year, but this Buckeye football team definitely could be the anomaly. Head coach David Shaw has built a college football team that plays like an NFL team out there in Palo Alto. They're big and athletic along that offensive line, and they utilize multiple formations and run downhill right at you. And on defense, they're solid at every level, and they arguably have the best group of linebackers in the nation. The biggest question, can quarterback Kevin Hogan continue to progress as a passer while breaking in a completely new group of targets at wide receiver and tight end? But this brand of football is one that nobody wants to face week in, week out. And our preseason #1 college football team in the country is the Alabama Crimson Tide. They're the most complete and deepest team in the country. They dominate you defensively, and they frustrate you on offense because of their well-balanced offensive attack. This year's schedule is a lot tougher, and that's the way Nick Saban wants it, because he now knows his team has to prove week in and week out why they are #1. Quarterback A.J. McCarron will be in the Heisman Trophy conversation as well as the Maxwell Trophy conversation because of his outstanding play. And the Tide can't overlook any opponent because each and every week versus a new team presents new sets of challenges.